It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! Sorry about that. I have a bit of a sore throat today. I hope I'm not getting sick. Fingers crossed. This is the first Feedback Friday since Lady Bits episode 0 went live. Sorry it's not live. I'm preparing for the first live Rich and Red podcast. We're switching to a live format, so we're doing that Friday today. So you can interact with me live there. I don't know what time it is yet, probably in a couple hours from when this video goes live. So, but I did want to do a little bit of a recap on the Lady Bits feedback as well as some other videos I've done. I have resumed somewhat regular content, at least until I go, heavy into episode 1 stuff again. But I just wanted to give you guys a sort of heads up. You know me. Transparency, communication, all these things are my jam, both just because it's the way I work, but also because of past stuff in the gaming industry. I think the only way to build trust or rebuild trust in gaming personalities in general is to be as open and transparent as possible. And yeah, sometimes that is going to suck, but you have to take the good with the bad and recognize that I have found, at least overall, being transparent with you guys means I earn the benefit of the doubt when things do go wrong. And, that is one of the core principles of Lady Bits, and it was important to me. Again, this was not a scheduled episode. That's why it's episode 0. There will still be 12 episodes plus the backers only episode produced. This is not a substitute for anything on that list. It is extra content because during the feedback sessions, it became clear that defining the program was important because of all the bad blood that's out there regarding the subject matter. And that's no one's fault. It just is what it is. There were a lot of concerns that people were going to attempt to misrepresent the program. I'm sure they still will. And that's part of the reason I did it, is so now you guys have the founding principles. You can hold me to those. I'm sure I will mess up at times about my interpretation not being the same as somebody else's when it comes to those principles, but it's all going to be, a good faith attempt. And I think that's very important. It's very important to me that the whole thing was done democratically. For people who are curious, what we did is it was an initial list of, I don't remember, it was 13 or 14 points. And I'm like, vote for 10. And there was no clear majority. And I also had a comment box on the survey. And some of the things that were in the comment box is like, how did I forget that? One of the things I left off the original round was the fact that it's a sex positive approach. Pretty important, but this is the nice thing about having a feedback group, is they miss things that are so obvious to me. I don't think about voicing it. So that got put on the second round, and obviously it made it in. It was something like 7 pick 3 or something like that. I don't remember the specifics, but there were 2 rounds, and it was all not only voted on by the community, it was also nominated by the community. It was all community driven. This was an approach I originally started using when I produced, those of you in Canada who have seen the old fromage specials that Ed the Sock did. I was a producer on those. And so that was the format I used back then, because it was, stop it, email. It was making fun of music videos, and my attitude was that if we were going to take pot shots at musicians, at like pop musicians, and that's what the show was. It was funny, but it had an element of mean-spiritedness to it, because the whole idea was these people were rammed down our throats for an entire year. They're treated as these paragons of everything human, and they're better than us, and so every year at the end of the year, instead of them being our betters, it's sort of the Colosseum, the Roman Forum. for one special, and it was catharsis programming. It was. I enjoy catharsis programming. I think it helps people in a lot of ways, even though there's no scientific evidence. Catharsis actually works. Sometimes it's fun, and so I wanted it to be as fair as possible, because there's a huge difference between poking fun at people who have, kind of behaved in ways that, I hate they deserve it kind of thing, but it's the people that a majority of people think deserve not being horribly mean to, but getting sort of the at the sock treatment, as opposed to the people we think. Because when you know people, when you're sort of inside the entertainment media bubble, you can get biased. And so I thought, if we're gonna make jokes at other people's expenses, it has to be as fair as possible. So that's where the methodology originally came from. I think it works well. It lets me feel like I am being fair. It makes it easier for me to create the kind of content that people want. The biggest surprise to me was there were things on there about gender identity and stuff like that, cultural attitudes towards women. None of that was terribly important to the community. They were much more interested in an artistic analysis as opposed to sort of a sociological approach, which I found very interesting. Now, it could be just because there's so much sociologically driven stuff out there. It's been done to death. It's already done. People see there's nothing more to say. But that makes it easier for me to know how to channel the content, because there's a lot of different ways of going about this. And so that was a learning experience for me, because if you go online, you think these issues of what do these definitions mean, and how many genders are there, and is it biological or learned behavior and all that stuff, like way low, like very little interest. Less than a quarter of the community included that as one of their votes. And that's very telling to me. And that is consistent with what I have found actually being out in the world, where people on the internet care very much about these things. People in the real world have a much more pragmatic view of this stuff, which is, how is it relevant to me? That's a case-by-case basis. I will call you what you want to be called kind of thing. And I found this especially interested because there were transgender people in the feedback sessions, and they identified as transgender where it was appropriate. They didn't walk in and go, hello, I'm trans. But when it came into certain issues and there were certain topics, they did disclose. And after a while, people just know, oh, there's that person, that's them. There was this group of like 25 regulars that were at almost every single feedback session. And so people got to know each other. And I always got happy. This is not a transgender person, just an aside, but this one guy, he just showed up, the amazing Patches is here, and I didn't feel like it was a proper feedback sessions until Patches showed up and said, the amazing Patches is here. It kind of made my day, every feedback session. That's what it was like. And that was a really great experience for me, because it was so different than the corporate meetings that I'm used to in terms of content development, where everything's very tense. And, people are finding ways to speak around what they actually want to say. There's so much corporate speak, and you spend a lot of time going, what do these guys really want? Like, what do they really think? You walk out going, I think that went well, but I'm not sure. As opposed to, what went on in these sessions, which was very honest and very, I was astounded at how much people shared. I'm still humbled by that. And so, speaking of humbling, let's go on to sort of what worked and what didn't work in episode 0. The content itself, the humor worked very well, I think. People understood the deliberate exaggeration on the I hate the Sims runner. That was very funny that I got all these tweets saying, how do you really feel about The Sims, including from some game developers? That was really cool. It was nice to see everybody kind of having fun with it, because it was an obvious joke I thought. But, you know, there's all that stuff. It was something of a risk because there's all that stuff about some people saying gamers don't want women to be funny. You know, there's a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of stereotypes about gamers. There's a lot of stereotypes about gamers' attitudes towards women. And I didn't find that was the case at all. Now, I'm sure that if it went viral, a lot of people would jump on it, as these things tend to. You know, you get over a certain critical mass and certain either troll boards or, you know, groups that just like to cause trouble. And I separate those from trolls because trolls are just doing it for the sake of doing it. There's almost a purity and they just dump on everything. Whereas some people crap on certain things because they are emotionally invested. I don't consider those people trolls. I consider those people a lot scarier than trolls, because the minute you recognize a troll's a troll and they're just going to be a malcontent, whatever. The people that worry me are the people who seem to be emotionally invested in hating my guts. And that is just my own personal thing, you know, having had to deal with more than one stalker in the past. I don't want to go through that again. Stalkers are massive, resource heavy problems that you have to redo your whole routine and keep changing it up so they can't follow you, and I have to pay for all the security, and I don't want to go through that again. So, you know, those are the people that disturb me. Now, so far, that's been fairly low. Now, there also haven't been that many views on this, and it was because it just came out. You know, there was no press attention on it. And I was kind of hoping, you know, a happy side effect of putting out an episode 0 is people would realize that was out, and so they'd be waiting for episode 1. That hasn't happened yet. And so I'm, you know, asking everybody who's watching this, you know, please spread the word on it that when episode 1 comes out, because I cannot rely on the media. The agenda was a happy accident, but let's face it, that was done because I like the topic. I don't think agenda viewers are gonna be playing video games or watching content on video games. They may think I'm funny, but their TV view, I mean, I think they do actually have a fairly decent web component. I like that they have everything online and it's not geofenced and people all over the world can do that. Kudos to the agenda for that. Thank you for being internet friendly. And it was a good experience. It was actually one of the more positive experiences I have had doing those sort of mainstream panel shows. I talked more about it on the Patreon Thursday video this week. That is one of the perks backers get. They get the inside stories. They are also going to get gameplay videos now, but a bit more on that in a bit. I want to stay on this because the comedy worked. Overall, the set, I think, worked. We're still tweaking it. The 4K has been a real challenge. That was the biggest unexpected difficulty. When I made the jump from standard definition to 720p at the time. I think it was even 720i at the time when I first started working in high def. My God. I still have a TV that's a high def TV that only does 1080i. It's an awesome TV. I am not getting rid of it until it dies. It's, you know, I have it in the dining room. It's small and it, you know, the 4K color goes more on it. And this is what I'm discovering is that 4K video, I thought it would take color and grab it the way high def does. It could be the lights we're using. We could need to completely redo our lighting system for 4K, but oh man, it eats color. Now I understand why when I watch shows that are recorded 4K native, they look dark on you know, the regular high def stream. There is a process. I'm glad we were able to find that out on the first, because we did camera tests, but that is not the same as sitting there when it's all, you know, what it's going to be with hair and everything done. So I noticed it was a little desaturated. I noticed the colors were a little bit off. And my husband just passed me a note that he still uses an SD TV. I know, and it drives me crazy. Yeah, it's still one of the old boxes. And I'm like, when are you gonna get, when I work in the basement, he's got it on and it's all, he's laughing now. Yes, this household is a total role reversal. I'm like, 4K, HDR, yes. And he's like, I use an SD TV. But the thing is, he uses it to watch like old 70s TV shows that were in SD. That's fine. But when, I'm trying to watch something that's a modern TV show on that, and they run forever. They're good TVs, but my God, it's like,
Years so far.
yeah. How many years? 20 years on this TV. So, oh yeah, I remember when you bought that TV.
No, this came from my office at Newton Cable.
No, it didn't. You had a smaller, and okay, now we're having a conversation with you guys watching. We're going to move on. But
Right, anyway, it's at least 20 years old.
yeah, he says it's at least 20 years old. And it's heavy. But yeah, we ended up investing in a 4K monitor to see it outside of the little viewfinder, because we also found out that in 4K, in 1080, you can just jack in a regular monitor and it won't be true color, but it still displays on even an SD monitor. With 4K to 1080, it just won't read. 4K only runs on 4K. It will not display coming right out of the camera in a high def monitor instead of an ultra high def monitor. That sucked to find that out, because it runs fine when you put the media on your computer and then you play through the computer. I guess the computer processes it and displays it in a format the monitor can read. But when you're going right from the camera, it's just black screen, which we didn't know until we tried it. So all this is a real learning curve. Obviously there is, and I didn't expect this, there is a sufficient enough difference between high def and ultra high def that this stuff happens. So that has been, and then silly me, I thought, oh cool, there's this little bucket that changes color, because I didn't like the way the rabbit and Mr. Fizzy in the background were just sitting on their own. So I put them in the bucket. I thought it'd be cool, but it flared like crazy. 4K grabs light like whoa, which is probably why the stuff looks dark. But yeah, that bucket won't be there because it caused some real color balance issues when I went to color correct the video. So that was all stuff that was a learning process. Still getting used to how to sit on that chair. It's an awesome chair, but it's round. And so I was way too over to the side. It was a really awkward pose. I don't like it. We're going to change it. We're working on getting a few extra shooting locations. The second one by the shelf was too dark. It wasn't properly lit that time. So these are all bugs we're working out. These are all things that we're going to get better at. I thought the overall content was solid. Now, how that's going to translate when we start getting into the actual format and including gameplay videos and everything like that, which are taking a lot longer to get than I expected. I think I need to get away from the idea of pointing out specific moments. It's just so time consuming and there's diminishing returns. Like, trying to get video of the Siberia level in the Tomb Raider reboot. Like, oh my God, I have to replay to that point to get it because I don't have a save file. And so I'm going to have to rethink how that's done because it's just not a good use of time. I think I am going to start leaning on the community some, saying, hey, do you guys have video of this stuff you're willing to donate to the program? Because obviously the purchases of the monitor and the lights and all this stuff, this is all straining the budget some. I mean, okay, it's $600 for a monitor, but that's $600 I didn't expect to spend. So it's getting there. It's growing pains. It's learning whenever you go to a new format. It happens. It'll be good for me in the long term. One commenter said they mentioned something about the video quality, which yes, there were issues with it, but then they mentioned the audio being bad and didn't specify how. Audio is one of those things. What do you mean it was bad? If you don't give me details, I have no idea what you're talking about. It could just be not to your preference. You remember me of the annoying voice? I don't know what you're talking about. And the fact that it's one person saying it and that wasn't replicated by that many other people implies to me that it could have been a digital artifacting thing. The only thing I can think of is that there's a hiss on the line, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's just as simple as a cable is crossing an electrical source. So the audio cable is passing a power cord or something like that, and it creates a hiss or a hum on the line. Sometimes it's just room tone as well, and there's a setting in Adobe Premiere that allows you to take that out. If it's too high, it does make the voice sound somewhat digital. That's the only thing I can think of that, would create an audio problem, because the levels ran fine. It sounded fine. I always check it, double check it, triple check it. That's the only thing I can think of. So again, going forward, I ask you, if you're going to criticize, please be specific, especially when it's a technical thing like that. Because I did go back and look at it, and other than the fact that it is being pumped through the internet and it is being compressed, and YouTube's audio is not the best sometimes. Like, I can't control the internet compression on every ISP out there. I don't know what the problem is if you just say it's bad. And to be fair, there's a lot of people out there who are just trying to be helpful. They're not trying to be jerks, but they think that they're helping by criticizing. If you're that lacking in specificity, I cannot do anything about it. And I'm not going to follow up and ask. It's like, I'm not going to do that. Please, sir, can I have another stuff? When people are enjoying the jokes, and I've been warned. I have been warned by people in ad agencies and people who are helping me try to get more attention, more media attention, more sponsorship. One of the weaknesses that's been identified that I have is I respond to too much criticism. I focus on criticism too much. And, this is me going bang head against the wall, because what's the thing I hear in gaming? You can't handle criticism. You don't respond to criticism. You shut down criticism. So I'm caught between two worlds here. I'm caught between the gamer world that loves to criticize, and there's this expectation that you take it, say, please, sir, can I have another? And then you have the advertising world. And the way that world works is nobody wants to back a loser. Everybody wants to back a winner. And if you are responding to your critics instead of just flying the flag going, we're number one, focusing on your strengths, advertisers don't want to partner with a person who is focusing on the negative. So this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be a tightrope, because I don't want to be one of those people who doesn't respond to legitimate criticism, legitimate feedback in general, good or bad. I think that a really well-written comment that tells me what someone liked is super invaluable. It's almost more important than a very specific criticism. And that's just not, well, it makes me feel good. Let me explain why. I'm a format person, meaning I like a lot of stuff. I like just creative projects in general. And you may notice I'm all over the place in terms of my interests. I can write about a lot of stuff in a lot of different ways. I'm a trained writer, and I spent the first 7 years of my career writing in different voices, writing for other people, not my own dialogue. I write to the stipulations that I am given. That's the difference between somebody who's just expressing themselves and using writing as therapy and people who write for a living. You write to an audience, you write for the product, you write for that character. You can write in a lot of different ways. It helps me very much when someone really likes something, because then I can go, well, I'm going to do that again. Otherwise, you're just stumbling around the dark going, okay, they didn't like that, they didn't like that, they didn't like that. The problem is that people don't like a lot of different things. And part of entertainment is going, who is my audience? Who is this for? And once you decide who it's for, and Lady Bits is for gamers. So if gamers like it and non-gamers don't, carry on, right? No program can be for everyone. And what does that mean for gamers? Well, it's something as simple as, do you notice, like in the first Tropes versus Women video, they said it's rated PG? That's a movie term. That's the MPAA guidelines, not the ESRB guidelines. That would be, what would be the equivalent of PG? T for teen? Or E10, probably. So, like, in a gamer-oriented program, it's going to be T for teen or E10. It's not going to be PG. I wouldn't think of writing it that way. If I was writing about movies, yes, I'd say this is PG-13. And it's interesting because somebody, I dropped one F-bomb and didn't bleep it in episode 0, and somebody said, I thought this was going to be rated PG. Well, PG-13, you're allowed to drop one F-bomb. You can't, it's weird, the stipulations, but you can do a couple. You know, that's why they were able to have people making out like crazy in Harry Potter films, and it still got a PG-13 rating. You know, kids are getting killed, people are making out. You know, the Avengers, I forget which one it was, but, you know, it's a PG-13 rated film, and they, you know, dropped in Mewling Quim and the Rite of Prima Nocte and everything like that. I mean, those are not the most polite references. And in the UK, Quim is considered swearing. People just don't know what it means here, but you are allowed a small number. But the thing about a lot of these things is they're censor boards, and censor boards have always been really weird that way. But that's my request, both in terms of let's be productive moving forward, but also a little bit of understanding. I am caught between two worlds here in being able to make a living doing this. I have determined that crowdsourcing alone just does not bring in the revenues to do what I want to do with these sorts of programs moving forward. So there is going to have to be some sort of corporate involvement, even just as simple as, look, you need people in places to get you the press to advertise your products. Like it sucks. It is definitely a racket. It's almost a protection racket. But, and yes, that's a loaded statement. Moving on. So hopefully you guys understand, and moving forward, please give me more specifics, not just this is this and the audio is bad. What is your specific issue? I really need to know that, because I do want to fix it. If it's that vague, I can't. Fair? Fair. Okay. So I mentioned that thing earlier about gameplay. Gameplay videos don't do very well. They do well on other people's channels, not mine. I've accepted that. I have chosen to believe that is because I am awesome. You guys want my take on it. But, you know, to put it in perspective, the Cuphead video I did with the Weinstein controversy got double both the views and the positive ratings as the video I just did straight up on Cuphead, why it's good. And it's funny because the straight up Cuphead video a year ago would have been decent by my rating standards in terms of traffic. Now it's below what I need them to be. So good, yay, that means channel growth. On the other hand, I have to be more mercenary about this stuff. I want the channel to continue to grow, right? And so that means I have to focus on the stuff that people are actually kind of watching. So gameplay, straight up gameplay, is now going to become a Patreon only feature. It's going to be available for the monthly patrons. They like it. They're the core, like those are the people who care enough about gaming commentary to pay for it. So I'm going to continue to do it for them. I think that's only fair. In terms of reviews, if I get a review copy, I will do something. I do that just because that's playing the game. They want commentary. And I know that the game, the publicists don't want their commentary attached to something like, the Harvey Weinstein controversy. But in order to get the views up, where they have to be, you either have to be savage on developers and console makers, which gets your access cut, or you have to marry it with some sort of controversy, which gets your access cut. So right now, my choice is between not getting access, even less access than I already get, or getting access and getting no traffic or lousy traffic. It sucks. It's not a good choice. And so I'll just keep stumbling along trying to figure it out. I don't get that many games anymore anyway, which is kind of disappointing. But again, that's the trade-off for being too controversial. That's one thing that drives me crazy about gaming. It's the only entertainment medium out there that is that terrified of controversy. Other mediums recognize that controversy gets your name out there. You get a fan base that likes what you do. Practically everything is controversial in this day and age. So that's where that's at. The Weinstein thing, it's still an unfolding story. You may have noticed CNN going after politicians for not responding quickly enough. Well, here's the thing. I made that video before Ronan Farrow's New Yorker interview, New Yorker piece came out. The story evolved then. The story, it continues to evolve. And if you come out and make comments very early on, you're at the risk of being retroactively inaccurate. Now, I tried to focus on sort of why this goes on and the general the greater Hollywood culture that contributes to this stuff. So all that holds. But yeah, it's some of it is already dated. Some of it is already inaccurate. And I just hope people look at the date the video went up before they jump all over me for that. But it's a tough one. I know I'm dealing with a lot of my own bad memories now, that frustration of being one of those people that in some cases said something and was treated like a problem. In other cases, after I'd been treated like a problem 3 or 4 times, I just shut up about it. Like, yeah, that guy grabbed my ass. Yeah, that guy made an untoward comment. Yeah, that guy flashed me his junk. I had a guy flash me his junk at a comedy club once. It was just out of nowhere. Just boom! Testicles. Like, that used to happen. It used to happen, and it was seen as funny. And, that's something where, and it is very different because it's like, did that guy have any power over me? Not the same as an executive like Harvey Weinstein. And I think that there's a bit of that being lost, that this is not about sex. This is not about just someone being a creeper. This is about power. This is about the systemic problems in not just Hollywood, but, there are other industries. I mean, all that stuff about certain companies in Silicon Valley is coming out. It's where there's money and where there's power, there are cover-ups of bad behavior. And I personally think it's tied to the disappearing middle class, that there's no such thing as enough anymore. You either have to be phenomenally wealthy or you're phenomenally struggling. I think that we need to get away from that. We need to start paying people what they're worth and having more job security overall, but also making it easier for people to find work and not having those barriers to employment be so high. Because, let me tell you, the older you get, the more you start having these discussions with yourself of, should I find something else to do? Should I move on? Well, can I even because of my age? And that's a real problem, especially for men over 50. You know, I look at the suicide rates for men over 50. You know, it between that and 65, you're not old enough to retire, but you're seen as a dinosaur that has no value because it's a young man's game. And I don't think that's fair. There's a lot of people who have a lot of wisdom. They might not be as fast, but they don't need to be because they have so much experience that they work smarter instead of harder. And I think that we are losing that element of the workforce at our own peril. I don't think it's actually good for companies. And if you guys wonder what I'm playing with, it's a little stuffed panda. I got this I went to see the pandas at the zoo, and they gave me a coupon for a panda plushie at a Chinese restaurant. And I went, and I have this panda, and he's cute. So maybe I should put the panda up with my other guys. But he's cute, and he's soft, and he's actually designed to hang on things. But I just like squishing him because he's kind of cute. But will he stay up here? There we go. Yeah, there he is. He's gonna fall down. He's not gonna stay there. But yeah, I still have to repaint my wall behind me. That's why the camera's at something a funny angle. I will get to that eventually, but I figure Lady Bits is the priority. Just to close off, when can we expect the next one? This is actually my question for you guys for the week, and I know this video's gone on a bit long. Thank you guys who have hung on. I am torn right now between staying on a delivery schedule and making these shows as good as they can be. Now, I have to stay on a schedule to a point because I'm going to run out of money. But I'm a schedule person. I believe in hitting deadlines, but how much don't release it until it's ready versus no, stay on a schedule, you owe that to your audience. Do you guys feel? I mean, I still even feel bad that I promised the shows in September and it launched like October 4th or something like that, which to most people, it's like 4 days, whoopee-doo, good enough. For me, it's like, I was 4 days late. You know, that's because of my background and because hitting deadlines was important and all that stuff. That bothers me. But nobody seemed to complain. I didn't get the people doing the, you know, the red circle on the thing September. October was clearly close enough, but I don't want to abuse that goodwill. So what's your tolerance for things taking a little longer to get that extra video clip or to get that effect right? Or to, you know, to make sure the quality is, you know, it's never going to be 100%, but, you know, that 85 instead of a 75 kind of thought. Let me know. Okay, I'm really interested in your feedback on that. Please tell me. It will be very, very helpful going forward because, like I said, I believe to sticking to deadlines, but then I realize with video games I want them to release it till it's ready, when it's ready. Financial realities aside, right? So, Feedback Friday, too long, but I had to do 2 weeks of Feedback Friday. So, thank you for your patience. Thank you for watching. Back to working on Lady Bits.